Hi, I'm Kelly of the Pink Apron blog, and I'm here today at my parents' house in Minnesota to show you how to make a great recipe that isn't fried on a stick or involve any sort of spam. It's cranberry-pear tartlets from the famous Minnesota chef Tim McKee, so come along with me as I make this delicious dish. So the first thing we want to do is to make the base for the ice cream. And it's very important to make this at least 4 hours before you plan to serve it because you want it to be nice and chilled before you put it in your ice cream maker. I'm actually doing it the night before Thanksgiving because I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly and I like to make sure that it's as cold as it's going to be so I get the right texture. So first we're going to start with 5 cups of cranberries. And these are frozen cranberries because fresh are a little bit hard to find in some of the grocery stores around here. But you could easily use fresh if that's what you have available. And we're going to dump them into our large saucepan. In addition, I have 1 3/4 cup of just plain granulated sugar. Again, you can feel free to mix it up here if you like more of a natural raw sugar, you could go with that as well. And then we also have 3 cups of just plain old tap water. And what we want to happen is we want to bring this up to a boil. So you're looking for the cranberries to break down just a little bit. So our cranberries have been cooking for about 5 to 6 minutes. Looking at them, I can see that my cranberries have broken down and the sugar is dissolved, so it's ready to go. So our next step is that we're going to take this mixture and we're going to strain it through the sieve. And the reason why we are doing this is we want to make a cranberry syrup that we're going to use both in our ice cream base as well as in some of the other components of the dessert. And you want to be really careful when you're scooping out the mixture because obviously it's still quite hot. So now we've strained our cooked cranberry mixture and we've separated it out into the more solid cranberries that didn't go down through the sieve, as well as we have 1 cup of the cranberry syrup. So what we're going to do is put these cranberries into the blender. Now obviously you want to be careful when you're pouring because it's quite a messy liquid. And then we're also going to add 1/2 cup of sugar. And it may seem like we're adding a lot of sugar to this dish, but it's important to keep in mind that when you're making ice cream, things don't taste so sweet once they're frozen. So you generally need a lot more sugar than you would think to get the taste that you're looking for. So I'm going to put my lid on, and what I'm going to do is, as I'm pulsing the cranberry and sugar mixture, I'm going to pour in some of my syrup to help it along. So my mixture is nicely pureed. I'm going to strain it 1 more time to get out any of the solids so I have a nice smooth ice cream. And then I'm going to refrigerate it overnight to chill. Welcome back. It's Thanksgiving morning. Our ice cream mixture chilled overnight and then I combined it this morning with 1.5 cups of whipping cream before turning it in my ice cream maker. And the result is a really nice creamy mix that's about the consistency of soft serve. So I'm going to cover it up with my tin foil. And then I'm going to stick it in the refrigerator for another 2 hours. And this will allow it to firm up to the hard ice cream consistency that we're used to. So now it's time to continue on with the pastry part of our recipe. And first we're going to make the pastry dough. And I'm making this first because it needs an hour to chill before I roll it out. So I want to make sure I time all of my components so that they all come out perfectly. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my food processor some flour, salt, and sugar. And because this is a smaller food processor, I'm going to do it in 2 batches, but obviously if you have a larger food processor, you could do it in 1. And the reason why we pulse these ingredients together before adding in our butter and our ice water is just to make sure the dry ingredients are well mixed. So we have a little bit of just plain all-purpose flour going in. And then to that we're going to add our granulated sugar. And we have a lot less granulated sugar in the pastry part of this recipe as compared to the filling or the ice cream because you really don't want a tremendously sweet pastry. You really want it to balance out the filling. So we have about half going in here. And then last but not least, we have our salt. And a lot of people often wonder why you need salt in a dessert, but it really helps pick up the flavor and enhance everything that you're putting in. So now I'm just going to pulse it quickly. Alright, so that's just about perfect. It's mixed well enough that I don't see any large chunks of butter, but we're still getting those small pebbles that we're looking for. So I'm going to add in half of my ice water, and I want to continue pulsing just until it starts forming a consistent dough. So now it's all come together in a nice soft dough. So I'm going to repeat it with the remaining mixture, and then we'll come back when I'm ready to knead out and roll out the dough. Right? So our next step is to flour our work surface with just a little bit of flour. We don't want to work too much extra flour into the dough. Really, it's just here to help us from sticking and making a huge mess. And the reason why we're kneading it out is we just really want to make sure that it all comes together consistently. But we only want to do it a couple of times. I think the mistake that a lot of people make when starting out with pastry doughs is they overwork it and then they wonder why it comes out tough. So the key is to really work your dough as little as possible, and also just to be mindful. You really want to pay attention when you're going along and really think about the details. So again, working in all these small crumbs. So our dough has finished being kneaded, and it's all in one nice consistent log, and I'm going to chill it in the refrigerator for an hour before we take it out to fill our pan. So now that our tartlet dough is resting in the refrigerator, we're going to get started on the filling for our tartlets. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have 3 tablespoons of the reserve cranberry syrup that we made yesterday. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. And I want to stir it together until it's a nice consistent pink color. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it cook for about 7 to 8 minutes until it's turned a light amber color. In the meantime, I'm going to start working on my pears, which are also going to go in the filling. So again, I have more of our cranberry syrup, and that's going to go into our pot. And I also have a vanilla bean that I've split in half, and a cinnamon stick that I've crushed up. And don't worry with the vanilla bean or the cinnamon if you get small pieces, because we're going to strain it out in the end. And what I want to do is let this come up to a boil, and once it's reached a boil, I'm going to add in my pears and cook them until they're soft through for about 10 to 12 minutes with the lid on. Our dough has had plenty of time to rest in the refrigerator. It's been in there about an hour chilling and resting, and it's now ready to put in our pans. So I've rolled some of the dough into a little ball, and I'm going to put it inside our muffin tin, or excuse me, our tart tin, and then I have this handy little tool that I'm going to use just to press it out. And what I just want to make sure I'm doing is making a nice well in the inside where our filling can go. So when that's done, I'm going to line it with some circles of aluminum foil, and I made these just by tracing the bottom of the pan on some aluminum foil. And we're going to put them inside with some lentils on top. And this just helps us to make sure that we get a nice flat bottom to our tart and that it doesn't puff up, and also that it doesn't brown too quickly. So I have this one that I prepared earlier, and as you can see, I've pressed it out and put in my aluminum foil and lentils. And now I'm going to put it in the oven for the first bake. Our pears have finished cooking, and I've drained them so that the liquids are separate and only the pears remain. And now I'm going to combine them with the cranberry syrup sugar mixture that we made earlier. And to this mixture, I added more of the cranberry syrup once it had reached a caramel, and then I also added in the remainder of my frozen cranberries. So I'm going to add these mixtures together. And you just want to stir them until they're nicely combined and the cranberries are evenly mixed up with the pears. So now we're going to add our dried fruit to the mixture. And whenever you're cooking at home, you can feel free to substitute different things based on your preferences or whatever is available at the stores. The original recipe called for currants, but I really like dried cherry, so I decided to use these instead. And I've also gotten some golden raisins. So our shells have come out of the oven after baking twice, first with the tin foil and beans, and then without. And now we're just going to fill them up with our compote. So at this point, the recipe is done, so you can sit back, relax, and enjoy your Thanksgiving. I'm Kelly of the Pink Apron, and thanks for joining me for this Foodbuzz 24-24-24 post.